6 audio.
Good.
Good. Okay.
Wow.
Are we ready to go? Yeah.
We are now.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to cut that other bit out because I didn't mean that. All right. That was a mistake. Okay. I meant she's perfect to play the role of Sylvia Plath. All right. Welcome to No Budget, and tonight we have the wonderful Cristina Ryan here with us again. We invited her back because she's such a lovely person to have around to chat to. We even got you chocolates. If you want to.
Oh,
Do you
brilliant.
want one? Should have got sushi actually. 'Cause that's what you love. Yeah.
Do, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about a name for this. So either the Life of Ryan, right? Yeah. Or Private Ryan or Public Ryan. I don't know. We'll figure that out later anyway. But I'm sure we'll put something witty on it. So look, okay. So Cristina, you started out as a musician.
I did, yeah. Very early on, from the age of 4. That was kind of my life.
You were playing violin at 4, yeah?
I started, my mum was my mum was a piano teacher, and she kind of quickly got me involved in that and realised I was somewhat good at it. So I was at Mass one day, I think I was about 4.5, and I remember looking up at the altar and there's this girl playing the violin, and I remember just turning to my mum and I kind of said, "What's that? That looks really cool." And she was like, "That's a violin," and I was like, "I want to learn that." And yeah, picked that up very quick, and kind of that was a very kind of escalated kind of progress into tours and kind of orchestras and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So.
including X Factor.
Yeah,
In London?
X Factor was college days in London. Great kind of experience.
I'd say so, yeah, because it probably was the biggest TV show at its time. I presume. X
Yeah,
Factor.
it was a big year because we had One Direction and we had Matt Cardle at the time and Rebecca
Really?
Ferguson.
Did you
Yeah,
get to meet them?
I did. Yeah,
Yeah.
when they were in their little baby stage before they kind of hit the bigs. So there's
Still in touch? Any of
no, but it's great to see that they've done well.
Come on,
and
name
kind of
names.
found
We want an exclusive.
no,
Christina and One Direction star.
no, there's no scandal there. But
We'll make one up later. We'll have to.
okay.
Yeah, but that's brilliant. That's fantastic. And then when we were playing piano at the same time, or
Yeah, the two were kind of the focus, and I went through actually up through college until my undergrad. Then I went into the masters, and I kind of focused more so on violin. So yeah, it got to a point where I just felt that there was a lot I wanted to achieve, and I think it is one of those things where you start something and you're kind of good at what you know, or you know what you're good at, and
Yeah.
I suppose London was a big opening kind of mind-opening experience where I kind of started to find myself and who I was and why I was doing what I was doing and why I wasn't doing what I was doing, or wasn't doing rather. So I kind of made the decision that I was going to, put that to the side and kind of start focusing on stuff that I suppose I'd always kind of in the back of my head wanted to do and never felt that I had the chance to.
yeah. And it's fascinating. We were talking earlier about how you're using a lot of what you learned in music in acting.
Oh yeah, hugely.
That was interesting because I hadn't heard that kind of stuff before.
Yeah, I mean it is one of those things where you start off very early at something, and the discipline and the practice and the hours. Like, I mean, in a way, I didn't have much of a kind of a life in terms of socializing and stuff as a kid because of practice. So I'd be in practicing hours a day. I'd have competitions, tours, stuff like that. So it was kind of tough, but it taught me so much in terms of training, in terms of memory, in terms of also channeling your emotions into different sections and different roles, so
Yeah, that's interesting because the violin it's very emotional, kind of emotive kind of
Yeah.
sound, and so there's a link between that and your acting and kind of the way you put emotion into a role, you reckon? Yeah.
Yeah, because I suppose like I had a lot of different teachers, and the way that they kind of taught would have been very kind of to the schooling system, and I suppose I found my own way of kind of learning things and kind of getting through that. So I suppose kind of touching on the whole acting thing, when I was, growing up as a kid, there was kind of a bit of history in terms of it being a little bit tough, bit of a rough start. And from that, I kind of very quickly found a coping mechanism, which was to actually watch films. It was my kind of escape. It was my kind of freedom, my liberty, So I kind of latched onto people. I latched onto characters, onto emotions, feelings, kind of images and scenes, and that was kind of something that was very kind of therapeutic for me. So I suppose it kind of feeds onto probably something we'll talk later about, which was the whole reason behind me wanting to get into acting. And I think also kind of, it's like a stew, you leave it to set for a long time, and then in a way I'm glad that I did wait until that point, that I had all of that experience and that, you know, time to grow and develop, to then actually come at it slightly older than maybe others.
Yeah, it's fascinating actually you say that about the therapeutic nature of acting, because a lot of people are talking about that. Like John Connors, have you heard what he said about acting, you know? That he was suicidal, he had no direction in life, and his father had committed suicide and he was at a very low place. And his brother said, John, why don't you go and try acting? And it turned his entire life around, and it was his therapy, you know? It was fascinating listening to that. So there's a lot of people who have found that, and I've even heard there's drama therapy now as a kind of a therapeutic thing. So. And
speaking of John, actually, he does, because we have talked about that actually, and he actually gives a lot back to the community. He runs a lot of kind of workshops, drama workshops, particularly for underprivileged children.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's kind of almost flipped that and used that to be able to give back.
That's fantastic, yeah. So along the way, you did modelling as well. So we are going to have some lovely photos there, and you're very proud of them. I mean, I think you should be. And I love that one. It'll probably be about here, where you're in the wedding outfit and you were congratulated on your marriage. Yeah, that was lovely. Yeah.
It was a wonderful moment for
your mum must have been so proud.
My mum wasn't. My mum was really annoyed because what came of that photo shoot was that we were doing a wedding thing, and I was working with Ben O'Byrne, who was he's actually a wonderful actor as well. And we were kind of loafed in together and right, you're married, act happy and stuff and all that kind of stuff. And you know,
such a cute couple.
It was ridiculous because suddenly, obviously, we were doing something that was right. That my mum started getting all these phone calls going, "How come we weren't invited to the wedding?" And you know, congratulations,
that's so Irish.
Cristina, and all this stuff. And I was going, what? And then of course she gets on to me, and I was going, I'm really sorry. But
the Ryans in Tipperary ringing up, going, "Why weren't we invited?"
Oh, they would.
The village.
There would be absolute war now. I swear to God, because my dad's side, Tipperary are very. Yeah, we were a very close family. Yeah.
So then you moved into the acting, and one of your biggest roles that you landed was Sophie in Camouflage. I love that bit at the end where the elevator door opens and you look.
Afterwards, I was covered in blood, and I was like, wouldn't it be hilarious in this really grand, luxurious hotel to get into an elevator and just go down a couple of floors and see who gets in, you know, and just kind of stand there, you know, and kind of have the whole look. Elderly couple got into the elevator.
Lovely.
This to her husband, and the husband turns around and he just backs up against the door as the door opens.
You didn't have the hammer in your hand, did you?
I did, of course.
You did?
I did. You had
oh
to
my
have
God.
the hammer. You can't just stand there covered in blood. They might think there's something happened to you.
We were talking about method acting earlier, and I think that is method acting.
Oh yeah, it is.
So you basically lived as a serial killer for 2 weeks?
I did. Well, I did in a way. I did kind of go into how I needed to do it and where I needed to go headspace wise. And I remember finishing that shoot and coming home and sitting on the couch. And I remember my mum and dad kind of looking at me, and I was just there, dead eyes. And my parents were like, "Are you okay there?" And nothing. Just staring into space, and my dad was like, would you like a cup of tea? And I was like, nothing. And my mum was like, I don't recognise you.
Surely the cat got through to you, presumably. Penny, is it?
Poppy wasn't there at the time. Who did we have? We had Leo actually and Penny at the time, yeah.
They were probably your sole comfort.
They were. Now, it took a while to shake it off. Any of those roles that I take, I get very, very immersed and kind of deeply involved in. So it takes a while to shake off, so it's kind of a matter of taking time afterwards and kind of just regrouping.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and another very challenging one you have is in the switch. Dissociative identity disorder. What is that? Because I've heard of it, I think, before, but I don't know what it is.
So dissociative identity disorder, it's also kind of known as multiple personality disorder.
All right.
But it's mistaken for that. Dissociative identity disorder is primarily someone who would have been through something very traumatic.
Yeah.
And the idea is that in order, as a coping mechanism, they actually kind of split their personality or their character or their mind, in terms of they kind of compartmentalize different parts of their personality to be able to cope with whatever is thrown at them. So in The Switch, Catherine, it's a case where she's put into a very traumatic kind of environment, and something happens very early on in her life that as a result, that's what she uses almost as a blanket. And you kind of see that throughout the movies. So I suppose one of the big things was trying to learn as much as possible about that disorder, to be able to kind of do it justice. And because I watched so many documentaries, and it really is, it's so common. You know, there's a lot of people out there that have it. And I remember actually finishing it, and I was talking to another person I was working with on another film, and he pulled me aside and he was like, I'm actually really comfortable to tell you that I have that.
Yeah.
And he was like, people don't know about it. And I was like, I was very moved, because I said, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, it was the first time I'd actually come across someone physically, I suppose, that I could kind of say I know, or in a way I knew a part of him, you know. And
well, I think thankfully, you know, our knowledge and comfort with mental illnesses is getting better, I think, you know. You know, with depression and anxiety probably most, but you know, we're still there's still a bit of ignorance, I suppose, out there about the more unusual conditions like dissociative identity disorder, probably.
yeah.
But what was it like to play a role like that? I mean, again, another challenging one for you, another very deep one.
Yeah, I think for me, what I did, the preparation that I did, as I said, I did a lot of research, and I watched a lot of documentaries to kind of figure out what's going on in their mind and how they're kind of interacting internally, I suppose, because that's what obviously projects externally. Okay. I'm going to get rid of this once and for all. Don't touch my stuff, you little bitch. Unless you want to end up like poor little George in the dark place. Yeah, I ripped his wings off, and I can take yours just as easily. You'll do no such thing. We don't require you anymore, and you are to get rid of this immediately. It was very difficult, but at the same time it was hugely rewarding, because I kind of, now during the set, like for Catherine, she has I suppose there's Catherine, and then there's her 3 alters. So you'd kind of have different age groups for those alters. So it was a matter of kind of physically knowing how to play a 6-year-old boy, and then knowing how to play a 90-year-old woman, you know, and kind of being able to switch, as the actual film is kind of based around that idea that, you know, you can never predict it, and there isn't actually a trigger that sparks that change in alters.
So it's not like stressful situations or something that spark this or anything. It's just a random.
It's so unusual in that it's not kind of with, say, almost forgive me for maybe using this wrong, but bipolar disorder, in that you might have a
Yeah.
good day or something small will
Right.
trigger
Yeah.
it to turn in on itself. You know, it's there isn't a trigger, there isn't a, you know, it's literally just it's unpredictable, and that's what's so baffling, I suppose, and that's what people struggle to understand about it, that there's there's no way, and it's so extreme to the point where when I was researching, like, one woman in the States somewhere, she had like 25, and one of those
25 different personalities. Wow.
Yeah, alters is
Gosh.
what they actually correctly
Alters.
call it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and like that, one of them was an alcoholic, and one of them was didn't drink alcohol at all. So
My
one
God.
day she'd be drinking a crazy amount of alcohol, and then the next morning she'd wake up with a hangover, and she gets so upset because that alter was so against that, you know.
God, I
that
can
it was,
imagine,
It was amazing, really.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is, and if it improves awareness about that disorder, it'll be very worthwhile. So you've also got Silence is Golden and Yesterday, I believe, is it?
That's right, yeah.
What
so
are the roles in those two?
They were much lighter, actually, I think.
What's the score? 40 love. Love. Yes! Woo! Yes!
Come on.
Please stay still. I'm a doctor. I want to see if you broke it.
You broke it.
I went
Okay.
through, I went through, as I said, kind of touching on what I said previously, where you do some very, very challenging kind of physically and mentally roles that you kind of need something that's going to kind of deflate or
Absolutely.
kind of release that
Yeah.
air, you know.
Exactly.
So I kind of bounced into Silence is Golden quite quickly after, I think was it Behind Closed Doors, I think it might have been. And that's a beautiful story, actually. It's one of the lightest ones I've done, which is about an old couple, and they're celebrating their lives. So it's kind of like, maybe, I know Todd she's probably going to kill me for saying this, but it is kind of an Irish version of The Notebook.
Ah,
In terms of how you see
lovely.
their different
Romantic
parts in the lives.
comedy.
It
Yeah.
is, and it was lovely to play that. We have Yesterday, which I suppose is another kind of tragedy, but not in such a kind of way, in that it's a beautiful story. I worked with Stephen Bruckenhauser before on Skylar, and this one particularly is about 5 friends who one of their friends dies all of a sudden, and they haven't seen each other in about 10 years.
What do we say up to that? Poor Bill, God, I really feel for him.
Richard.
Richard.
Kind of idea that, you know, life goes on, you kind of lose touch with people, and all of a sudden a funeral, more so than a wedding, a funeral kind of brings people together, and all of a sudden they're kind of
very Irish thing.
five friends are suddenly going, oh my God, is it actually 10 years since we've seen each other?
Yeah.
And, you know, so yeah, that's in the editing stage. That's coming out
That's
soon,
nice.
so.
Now, your ideal role that you'd like to play. So Miss Ryan is playing the ideal role, the role of your dreams.
God, there's so many. I suppose a very, very inspiring person for me that I would love at some point to kind of potentially, you know, have the honour of playing would be Sylvie Plath.
Great.
I suppose I discovered Sylvia's work when I was in secondary school, and I was kind of going through the whole teenage years and trying to figure myself out and what was going to happen and kind of everyday life. And I suppose for someone who kind of has a lot of ups and downs, I hugely respected the way that she was and the way she thought, and the way that she kind of wrote so brilliantly, kind of honest for someone of that time, you know.
Sounds like me with Morrissey. It's probably the equivalent, yeah. So it's kind of honest stuff that you identified with, and it was
Hugely,
yeah.
and she was a woman who was deeply troubled and was way
Mental
before
illness
her time.
again, right?
She did.
Yeah.
She had a lot of problems, and she actually, unfortunately, ended her life at the age of 30, which is the age I am now. So I suppose it kind of
Very tragic,
there was a lot to, you know. I mean, she was married to a poet who was very well known. she was kind of suppressed by that, by society, you know. She had so much to say, you know. She was such a forward thinker that I think the environment that she was surrounded by didn't take her seriously until after death.
Right. So we're putting that out into the universe to the director who is out there dreaming up of the biopic film, the Oscar-winning biopic film of Sylvia Plath, and here is your lead actor.
We won't go method on that.
We won't go method actor on that.
No, let's
No,
not.
despite what
No.
I just said. We will not do method acting on
No.
that. Okay, this has been No Budget. We've had the wonderful Cristina.
Thank you for having me. Cheers.
It's been a pleasure.